Hello, my name is Nina Yndis, aka Benedikta Harman, Warden of the Wind. You are watching Point of Experience podcast with Paul Castro Jr., and I really hope that you have an amazing time listening
As you've just wonderfully heard, we've got the spectacular Nina Indus on the Points of Experience podcast here coming up in a few seconds. If you haven't played Final Fantasy XVI, I just rant and rave this whole episode about why it's so good and how amazing her performance is as Benedicta, the Eikon of Wind. I don't know if that's the correct terminology, but, Garuda stuff. We're talking wind, summon, madness going on. And if you're a fan of the Final Fantasy series, you'll be a little bit familiar with Garuda and all of that magic and fun that comes along with what we learn about Benedicta and her story. And it is one of the... Gosh, we're going to be really careful about spoilers here, so I'm not going to say too much. In the episode, we're very spoiler conscious. We don't spoil anything, so you can watch this even if you haven't played the game. But it's just so exciting to talk about this game and how much effort and work went into it by her and the rest of the cast and the team. Her scenes are truly some of the most, it's just so much and it's all over and it's so satisfying and it's one of the most rewarding game experiences. And I think it could be enjoyed by anybody and everybody, especially if you're a fan of Final Fantasy or if you're a fan of high fantasy medieval stuff like Game of Thrones or Assassin's Creed or The Last Kingdom. It definitely has that type of feel to it. I've just been blown away, and to learn about her story, getting into acting and pursuing a career in this, and having worked on TV series like Peaky Blinders and doing musical theater and producing her own content. It's been really crazy to hear her journey and all of the exciting things that are to come. And hopefully more video game stuff, because this has truly been an explosion for her, and I think it should only be the beginning. I really, really, really want to see her do more stuff. So before we get to the episode, make sure you like and subscribe, and you do all that stuff. Leave a comment, rate us on all of the podcast platforms. It lets more people see it and hear it, and gives me a little bit of a push to want to keep doing these. I do them anyway, but it's always nice to be like, everybody watch and listen to this, because I'm hoping that these episodes are helpful. So let me know if they are. And if they aren't, you can do that too. I got thick skin. Here we go. Nina Indus on the Points of Experience podcast. Enjoy. But Nina, I'm so serious. I know we were just talking about this a second ago, and I wanted to save it for the start of this podcast. I've been playing 16, and let me see. I am a huge Final Fantasy fan. I mean, my whole room surrounded by Final Fantasy memorabilia. It's just everywhere.
Oh, wow. Was that Jill?
Sephiroth. No, that's Sephiroth, no. Though I could see the hair.
Oh, I see. I thought, the hair looked similar.
I need to get the 16 merch. I've ordered the Torgal, so it's on its way.
Oh my God. I just received my 16 merch in the post.
You did?
Yeah, and I got a statue of Ifrit and beautiful little pins. I've got a pin of Garuda. It's amazing.
Did they come out with a statue of Garuda yet?
No, but I have inquired.
Oh, gosh.
I have inquired. So hopefully, statue of Garuda will come, because that needs to go on my mantelpiece. But yeah.
Life size. What about one of the what they had at the event? Would you get one of those size of Garudas?
Yeah, I might have to ask the upstairs neighbor if it's okay. We kind of make a hole in the ceiling so that there's space for the head, because it's so big. But yeah, definitely I would.
That would be so cool. Garuda is one of my favorite summons of all time. I played 14. I've played every Final Fantasy, and I've beaten I'm a completionist, but 16 is something that I was so excited for when they first dropped those first trailers. I was blown away. I'm a huge medieval fantasy fan, obviously the Game of Thrones influences and everything, and there's just so much. The thing about this game that I was so blown away by is that Final Fantasies notoriously have this very high fantasy JRPG, for lack of a better term, appeal to people. So there was kind of an audience that existed for them. But with this game, I feel like the audience is now branched to everybody and everything because it's so much of what everyone likes.
Yeah.
And it feels like such an intro into the series. And getting to go to the event where I got to meet you, and you were so kind, and I knew that you were just a wonderful person from the
it was
moment we just
lovely
started
to
talking.
meet you. It was lovely to meet you at the event.
Oh, they put on such that event was one of the coolest things I've ever gotten to go to experience that energy and love for a series and for the excitement for this game. And getting now to have played it, and we'll talk about this later because I want to make sure I talk about you before we get too deep into 16. But obviously it's been my gateway to knowing about you, is your performance is so exceptional. And we're going to try to avoid spoilers here, and we'll edit them out if we come across them. So I'm sorry, but I'm protecting everybody who hasn't gotten to play the game. Your performance is so good, and it's a character that exists amongst tons of phenomenal performances. So the fact that you have such a and I don't want to talk too much yet about Benedikta, but the way that you position yourself to achieve your goals is so clever, and it's interesting, and it's compelling, and the way that you convey her charm and sophistication and nuance, it is chef's kiss. It is chef's kiss.
Oh my God. Thank you. Oh gosh. I'm getting emotional listening to that. That is so nice of you to say. Genuinely.
It is my pleasure. Seriously.
I mean, I have to give a lot of creds to just amazing writing. Like, this character, she's so complex and so well-rounded and deep. There's so much more to her that kind of meets the eye in the beginning. And, it was such a meaty character to kind of get my teeth stuck into. So I have the writers to thank for that. And also, you as you know this as well, because you're a really, really seasoned voice actor, that we kind of give our performances in the booth, and then afterwards they are the ones that piece it together with the sound design and everything. So the team is to applaud as well, for making my performance shine. So yeah.
It is a colossal group effort, and a lot of people behind the scenes don't necessarily get the credit that they deserve, so I appreciate you spotlighting that. But truly, I think that, and I'm sure with a game like this, I'm sure you had to be aware of how megalithic in terms of video game history this game is, and the amount of people that were probably considered for this role and every role. It just goes to show how much you brought to the character, and how just how clear your choices were, and how cinematic the game is, and how the storytelling is really enhanced by the actors. Each of you brings so much flavor to these moments that could, in video game history, there's been a lot of great games that have existed, but this really feels like you're watching an Oscar or an Emmy nominated television series. Yeah,
it does. It really, it's incredibly stunning. Like you say, so cinematic, and just, the sound design, everything coming together makes it could, I think they should make a movie of this, like, genuinely.
Right.
But it's funny that you say that, because when I was recording, I didn't realize what it was for. Like, I didn't know.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I didn't know what I was recording. So I had no idea, about the scope of the game. I didn't even realize the impact my character would have in the game. I just thought to myself, it's another sort of recording, because, we don't get told what we record for very often. Like, you can kind of piece it together sometimes, but I'm not a gamer. I don't really play video games. I had a very small part in Final Fantasy XIV, but I didn't piece it together. I didn't realize that this was another Final Fantasy game when I was recording it. Wow. So until the very end of the recording session. So you know, in the end, they were like, so Morgan and Ollie, they were the ones who were directing at the end of the recording sessions. And they were like, Nina, are you aware of what this is? I was like, no, because you never told me what it is. Like, how was I supposed to know? And they were like, okay, so, you know, it's Final Fantasy XVI. And I was like, oh, yeah, cool. Yeah, I've heard of Final Fantasy. You know, like, so naive. I was so naive. And they were like, yeah, so your character, she's one of the dominants. It's a big deal. And I didn't really think much more of it afterwards. I was like, yeah, okay, whatever. And then, you know, the game gets announced, the cast gets announced. I mean, no, the game was announced like before that, but the cast gets announced. And then a lot of my cutscenes have like this preview in February, and suddenly my social medias are, you know, exploding with people tagging me, and I'm like, what is this? And I see it's Benedikta, and I'm like, wow, this is much bigger than what I thought. And that was what, like, when I first realized what a huge deal it was. Yeah, I know people had been telling me, yeah, Final Fantasy is huge, but you know, sometimes it's like you don't believe it until you see it yourself. And I was kind of in a bit of that mindset. I was like, I don't know. We'll see. And then suddenly it explodes, and I'm like, whoa, okay. That was actually a huge responsibility. And I'm so glad that I didn't know, because I think that would have freaked me out in a way. Kind of carrying that responsibility, you know?
I think like a blessing to have walked into it blind maybe, and them not having told you. And I'm kind of curious about what they explained, because it sounds like everything got announced and then maybe they're like, oh, okay, so now we're going to do these press events. We're going to be doing these, because you guys have been doing like, it's almost identical to what like a main character or a series regular or a lead in a film, in terms of like a press junket, in a way, like the way that it's being kind of treated. And it seems and by the way, of like the highest caliber in video games. Like, we're talking about the peak. If there's like maybe 5 games that sit on the peak, like franchises, Final Fantasy is one of the people at the top. And it's that kind of weight in the way that games are now being, the accolades that they're receiving and the attention that they're getting. It's tremendous. Did they, so as it gets announced, you're getting all of this attention, you know, you're seeing how big of a deal the game is. Then do they just start coming to you with like more explanation of what the plan is and what is going to be in store for the future?
So it was all very shocking, and like I wasn't prepared for it at all. And then Ben Starr calls me. You know, we kind of got together on like a WhatsApp group with the voice actors and stuff. And Ben Starr, he's so ahead of the game with everything. He's been amazing with this whole press launch and everything. He's just incredible at what he does. And he called me. He was like, okay, so Nina, there's going to be a launch. You know, we're going to do interviews. There's going to be a lot of attention coming up. So, you know, if you have any questions, like, let me know, you can call me. And he was just so supportive because he kind of knew, you know, he's a huge Final Fantasy fan himself. So he knew the magnitude of all of this, whilst I had no idea. So we get to the London launch, which was back in April. And that's where the first time I meet like the marketing team behind Square Enix. And they sort of laid out a plan and told me, okay, we might be going to LA. We're not sure. Like, we'll confirm things, and there's going to be interviews. We want you guys, and like David and I, because we're both Norwegian, they wanted also to kind of dip into the Norwegian market and for us to do interviews there. So it was all quite sudden, and I kind of just had to jump on the bandwagon, very unprepared, you know, but it's been such an amazing a very inspirational process. I've learned so much from this.
Yeah.
And it's so nice that this game is getting like the hype like a mainstream sort of movie would. You know, it's so nice that they're marketing it in that way.
Yeah. I think it gives me hope for more games to come in the quality and caliber and the accessibility, like I was saying earlier, so that more people can experience, because I wasn't a big reader of books as a kid. I loved video games, and that's kind of how I consumed story.
Yeah.
That's how I learned language to a certain degree, like grammar and just big words that, kind of silly me as a kid wouldn't have really been able to use. I was like, that's an interesting word that they're using in this, Japanese role-playing game. I kind of want to use that in real life and then see what people say.
Yeah.
So I think that now with the appeal that these kind of games are getting, I think this game in particular will be one of those benchmark moments that people will talk about in history between bridging the gap of people who like things like this in television media and film media, and also like games, and who maybe never have played a game before in their life.
Yeah.
I think it really will be a crossroads type of thing for people. And I
100%.
also wanted to ask too. It's so funny because I was at the Square Enix office the day you guys were in London for something separate I was doing press-wise for them, and they were all like, it was like, they were like Final Fantasy XVI kind of hysteria, mayhem type of stuff, and I was just like, oh, this is going to be a big deal. It was exciting. But I wanted to know, because you've done, people may not know this, but you come from an extensive background in theater, television, and film. And was it surprising that, because I've also come from that similar background, to see that this game, and I'm sure you've done voiceover before, to see that was kind of the thing, and not that this necessarily quantifies the experience or what matters, but from an audience appreciation perspective in terms of you, was it interesting to see that this voiceover video game was the thing rather than like Peaky Blinders or, and I'm sure you got attention from that, but in the colossal way that people are really receiving this right now?
Yeah, it again, like, it's such a new world to me. I never expected this from any video game that I have voiced. And it's so heartwarming. It's so amazing. I think, like what we're talking about, I think video game is like the future of storytelling. Film and TV has been with us for many, many years. In a way, the video game industry is very new, but it's already beating the film industry, like, worldwide. It's now bigger than anything, and it's just going to continue to grow. So, I'm both surprised but also not surprised in a way. Like, I never expected to get so much attention for a role after a video game, just because, like, half of the time I don't know what it is that I'm recording. Like with I did Assassin's Creed Valhalla, and I guessed what the game was because, we had to scream Valhalla a lot. Like, so it's obvious,
Makes it a little easier to...
It makes it a bit easier to sort of understand, know what the game was. So, but most of the time, I have no idea. Sometimes the games come out and I get a friend kind of message me being like, I think I just heard your voice in this game. Like, were you this character? And I'm like, probably, maybe.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's so nice to see that a game like this, which has got such an incredible epic story, is getting so much attention. And also, what I personally really love about 16 is that they have a mode for beginners like me. So I got to, I just heard your cat. It's so cute.
Oh gosh, he's like, I want to beat up the other cats. I want
some attention. Anyway,
anyway, go on.
It's just they're just so cute. So where was I? I started thinking about your
immediate
cats
attention.
now.
Oh gosh, I know, but the oh gosh, these cats,
The
they
media
figure out a way to
attention.
ruin everything. Yes, the media
Oh
attention and
yeah,
that it was
and it's a so when you if you're a newbie in the video game kind of world like I am, you can still play this
yes.
game on like a easier mode, which I got to test out at the London launch. So I got to play, some of my own scenes, which was both weird and amazing. In the lowest mode, so I felt like I could get through the story with just
Yeah.
pressing one button. I don't know, you can kind of choose the levels you want, but it's so nice because it introduces a game franchise that might seem very intimidating and overwhelming for new people, but they can dive into it fresh.
Yes.
So that is what's really amazing, I think, about this game.
I think it's wonderful that they're creating these levels of accessibility for people. So if you want it to be more
Yeah.
difficult or complicated or nuanced in that way, that's wonderful. There's gamers. Everybody has different levels of the gaming experience, but the story is so good. And RPGs really, while a lot of them are focused on their action element or the gameplay element, story really is the driving force. And I think it's wonderful that anybody, regardless of their experience, can find a way to allow this to be enjoyed for them. And even the gaming, understanding a gameplay mechanic as complicated as something like this can, as you can craft it to be. I think that's so amazing, and I'm so glad that they're doing that more. And we're talking about the same game, the people who did Devil May Cry and Kingdom Hearts. Like, these are very complex gaming systems that you can then customize to work for whatever skill level you're at. So that's just really amazing.
Yeah, it's amazing.
It's so interesting. You never play. Sorry, I know there's like a half a delay here, so if I jump on you, my apologies. What were you going to say?
Yeah, no, go for it. Go for
it. No, I was going to say it's interesting that you never played video games, and yet you have this understanding already of kind of maybe it's being removed from it that allows you to focus more on the acting part of it, which makes me curious to like childhood wise, like what was your background? You grew up in Norway. Were you always interested in theater and performance? Because I saw you went to musical theater school. So when did all that get introduced to your life? Or were you kind of like someone who fell into it and you were going to pursue other things because you were into sports, or you were rambunctious? Like where did you find your thread to getting into musical theater, at least first?
Oh, well, that sort of love for singing, I guess, started when I was like 4. I watched an opera of Carmen. You know, the opera Carmen is like 4 hours long. I watched the entire thing when I was 4 years old. And then after that, I was like to my mom, I'm going to be an opera singer. To her detriment. It didn't work out. I never became an opera singer. But no, I think I was very active, like as a child, with theater and dancing and singing, piano. I play piano. So yeah, I think, and I loved writing stories, like storytelling. To me, that's like paramount. That's my whole world. And I think it just so happened that I was never really interested in sports. Like most of my friends would play football or handball or, all of these like sport, like ball games. And I was too scared. I'd rather go and, play the piano or sing or dance or, So yeah, so I was just a very, I guess, artistic child always. And then I got cast in a musical in my theater in my town. And I got cast as the leading actor. And then they wrote some reviews, like once we had the premiere at the theater, they wrote some reviews and people were very complimentary. And I think that was when I was like, oh, shit, maybe I'm actually good at this, potentially. Maybe I should sign up to like theater school or something. And I auditioned for theater schools and got in. So I went to like a theater high school, I'd say, that
Sure.
you still had all of the sort of normal subjects like maths and English and Norwegian and physics and all that. But then you'd also have drama and singing and that kind of stuff. And
Sure.
and then when I graduated from high school, I had a friend who was like, Nina, you need to try to get into the like UK theater schools. They're like the best in the world, or like try America or whatever. And I remember thinking, there's no way that I'll get in. Like I can barely speak the language. Like how am I supposed to be able to do that? She forced me to send in applications to like many schools. I got invited for auditions. So I travel, with my dad to London and to Scotland and do auditions for drama schools. And I get into like 3 of them. And I was like, what the... How? What? Like, this is like a dream come true.
Yeah.
But they, like, all of the drama schools had sort of conditions where my English had to be at a certain level. And back then it wasn't. I could barely have a conversation with people. Like, I understood English because there's so much English media in Norway. We watch American TV series and I listen to, English music in a way.
Sure.
But I didn't have the practice to actually converse in the language. So the schools were like, we want you, but you need to do these English IELTS and TOEFL tests. They're like very specific grammar English tests, and get a certain mark. And I failed them all. And so in the end, I just pleaded to one of the schools. I was like, please still like admit me to the course. I'm going to do English lessons after, school hours. I promise you that I'll learn English very quickly. And so they admitted me. And then the quickest way to learn a language is to move to the country and be forced to speak it. So, after 6 months, I was fluent. But it was a tough sort of way in, and a very sort of unexpected one as well. I never really thought that I would actually work as an actress internationally and on these huge international projects. I never thought that that was the case. Like, I wanted it to, but I never believed that it was possible in a way. So I'm very grateful to my friend who pushed me. Yasmin, I'm gonna just
good friend.
Shout her name out. Like she was so supportive. So and then studied musical theatre in Scotland at the Royal Conservatoire of Scotland, which I owe so much thanks to the training I got there. It's the reason why my voice is the way it is now. Like we did. 3 years of just voice technique. We did a very specific technique called the Nadine George technique, which actually, like, the first year, all you do is breathing. You learn how to breathe, and you learn how to unlock sort of your inner traumas or anything that's holding you back as a performer. So I remember the first year was quite traumatic, and it was like basically like therapy sessions where you're unlocking your inner blockages and emotions through voice work and breathing. And then it wasn't until like the second year that we started doing speech, and obviously it was Shakespeare, and you start experimenting with different levels of your voice. And something just happened. Suddenly my voice just dropped into my body and sort of resonated.
Really?
Yeah, it was crazy. It was like one voice session, like a voice class, and then my voice just dropped into my body. And I wasn't speaking up here anymore, like my voice was really resonating in my entire sort of like body. And then after that, I just had this incredible range that I had never had before. So I feel like I owe a lot of thanks to my teachers at drama school, because now I'm getting hired a lot to do, voiceover stuff, and there's a lot of screaming. And so you need to have a huge range, as you know. So like, it's so important to do the training beforehand.
And understanding of your instrument and how to properly and from a health conscious way use it. It's interesting you went to musical theater school. So what was the goal then? Did you think you wanted to be on Broadway or the West End in musicals? Was TV and film still? I mean, because I'm assuming voiceover wasn't even kind of, for me, it wasn't like, I was like, that kind of was something that came later. Yeah. But what was the goal or the vision, having come from the musical theater background? And then how did that transition into, I guess, getting those opportunities that eventually you wound up having?
Yeah. So, honestly, I didn't really have a plan at all. I just went to Scotland. I was so happy. I was so happy that I got into like a musical theatre school of that like prestige. And I was kind of like, yeah, sure, let's go for it. The thing is, I'm not really suitable for musical theatre, I think. There are some musicals that I've auditioned for that I probably could do. But like I sing and stuff, but I'm not your usual musical theater performer at all. And so I kind of figured that out throughout my 3 years there, that my strengths were actually in acting more so than, dancing. I can sort of dance, but I should never be hired as a dancer. And recently I did get hired as a dancer, and it was the most embarrassing thing I've ever done. But
for what?
Oh my God, it was for a TV series. I don't even want to mention it. It was so embarrassing.
Okay, we'll avoid it. But that's hysterical.
yeah. I don't want anyone to see this. But on my CV, I have like dance on my CV, but I'm definitely not an expert. I will never do the, big Broadway shows that requires like tap dancing and incredible skill. Like I just can't do that. And my singing voice is very much sort of like poppy, a bit edgy. So it's really difficult to fit me into a specific sort of category.
That's like me too. I'm like musical theater wise. For me, when I was auditioning for a lot of that stuff, like there was a very few ones that are like rock and roll themed, where I'm like, okay, maybe I can do that, but I'm not gonna do Les Mis, or I'm not gonna do any of that stuff. But I did get to see your short film, because I do a lot of research on people, and you have that one short film where it's like you on your Zoom call, right, and you're doing all that singing, and you do have a great voice though. You have a really great voice.
Oh my God, the hashtag Frozen. Did you watch that?
Yeah, Frozen,
That is so funny. You watched that. That was like a little lockdown kind of thing. Yeah. No, I do sing. I love singing. It genuinely gives me so much pleasure. I'm just not sure how much pleasure it gives to the listener. but
oh gosh.
I will continue to sing no matter what. Yeah, I'm the same. It's really difficult to fit me into a musical theater genre. And there's some musicals that I absolutely love, like Les Mis. I would love to be able to do that. But chances are it might not happen. Like maybe one day a miracle, will happen and I'll get offered a role. But I'm more realistic than that. So, so I guess I kind of knew that acting was my strength. And I had done some films and some TV in Norway before I moved to the UK. So I had some experience.
While you were in school, or was this after school?
Yeah, so whilst I was at school, how old was I? I think my first movie, I was 16 years old.
Okay. So you had an agent and a manager who got you that gig, or how did you? No, okay.
Yeah, no. So in Norway, it's only a new thing now that people are repped by agents, but the Norwegian film and TV industry is quite small. So, you kind of deal with casting directors and producers directly, and everyone sort of know of each other. So back then I had no clue. I was offered a role in a film, and then I was just dealing with contracts directly, which, I definitely didn't get a very good deal. And I'm very grateful for my agents
Got
now.
pizza?
Yeah, I got pizza. Yeah. Barely got paid.
Yeah.
No, so I'm definitely very grateful to have agents now because, it's such a relief. Yeah, it's important. But it wasn't, I didn't have an agent then. And also after graduating from drama school, it took me a while to get an agent because no one really knew how to place me because I'm Norwegian and Polish, and like my accent was a bit stronger back then. So they were like, we're not sure, like, you're not kind of blonde enough to be a Norwegian, so you're never really going to be cast as a Scandi, like a, Viking. But at the same time, your accent is a bit confusing, so we don't really want to put you up for English or American parts. We don't really know where to place you. Now people are getting more creative. Like, luckily, like the industry is opening up to everyone. But back then, casting directors were very... so kind of single-minded in a way, like with how you fit a character, how you fit a part.
Exactly.
Yeah, so I didn't fit in either at all. So it took me a while to get an agent. And then I finally got an agent, someone that, took a pun on me, and they were like, yeah, we see your talent, like we kind of want to try you out. And then my first job was a video game.
Really?
Yeah, so my first job was the Game of Thrones Telltale game.
That was your first... What year did that come out?
Oh, that was ages ago. Was that 2015 or 16 or something like that?
Wow. So it's been that long since that show has been out, huh?
Yeah. And, I got the audition, didn't quite understand what this was for. I was like, just voice, okay. And then, that was my first ever video game experience, and also my first job professionally in London.
Wow.
And then after that, as soon as you record somewhere, they keep your voice on file. So this was recorded at Side UK, which is a lovely, amazing studio.
There's also a Side LA for anybody listening, so that's
Side
a very
LA.
good company.
Yeah, huge, like amazing. They record the most amazing video games, and they just kept my voice on file, and then kept on getting me in for stuff, like up until now, which I'm so, so grateful for, that they still want to use me, even though it's been, over 10 years now. Video game was, like, the video game acting was my first ever professional job.
That's so crazy, and I mean, how full circle from this stage in your life to see that was the first thing. So when did the first TV, well, because you said you had done TV when you were younger, but what about in UK, kind of the first, because you had worked on some, and obviously I don't really know many of the BBC series, but I saw that you were on a very popular series that's on the BBC, and then you obviously did Peaky Blinders. Like, when did all of those come about, and were those just kind of like you eventually got your agent and you just kind of scored on the audition?
Yeah. Basically that, yeah. Again, which is why I'm so grateful to have an agent, because they can get you in the door, and they know how to pitch you. I got, a very small role in Peaky Blinders, but that was kind of what excelled my career in a way. Having those credits on your CV looks really good, and it opens more doors. After Peaky Blinders, I got more opportunities, more auditions. Very often, Eastern European, so which I still get very often, Eastern European roles.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The au pair you played, I think that you were
Yeah.
Eastern European, right? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, that was called the midwife, Eastern European. Actually, she was supposed to be from Hungary.
Oh,
So
okay.
I'm not quite sure how much I nailed the accent, but we did some accent lessons for that. It's really funny. I mean, you know, you go for an audition, and sometimes people, I guess it's maybe difficult to hear the difference between different like European accents, maybe. But I've had some situations where, you know, it says I'm Polish on my CV, and then they're like, "Oh, so do you speak Romanian then?" And I'm like, "How?" And you know,
Two separate things.
widely separate things, and you know, I'm not going to say no in an audition. I just want to get the part, so I'm like, yeah,
Yep, I'll figure it out.
I'll figure it out. Yeah. So yeah, but again, I don't know how you feel, but I feel like it's part of being an actor to be able to try different accents and play different roles from different places. Like it's fun for us to explore that, right?
Yeah, I mean, very recently I've had multiple things where it's various UK accents. So, you know, estuary or the North London accent. I have like a couple of things that I've been doing recently where I'm doing a British accent, and it's like imperative to me as the actor to try and like dive into the nuance. So like I'll sit on repeat and either like listen to like, you know, an actor that has like that same accent and or various actors and just try and pick one and just get that groove. And not, it helps. Like there was a character I had auditioned for. I had a callback for it recently, and it was the estuary accent. So I just listened to Russell Brand on nonstop because the character was kind of similar to him. And then there was there's this reality TV show where it's called like something Essex. It's like it's a really you know everything is Essex or something like that. Or
oh yeah, you know exactly what you mean. It's just lost. Like it's left my brain right now.
I don't know your opinion on it. Yeah, exactly. It's
that,
something
that
like
one.
that.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's really kind of like it's the US equivalent of Jersey Shore, and it's just like really guilty pleasure, I'm sure, for some people. Reality TV, I just couldn't bear much of it, but the accents were so authentic. And and then what the funny part is I went in and I had a real freaking authentic accent, and they were like, "It's too much."
What?
They were like, bring it back. They were like, you sound too much like
that's so
from
interesting.
the area.
That's so interesting you say that, because I have that as well sometimes when I'm putting on an authentic Polish accent. You know, an authentic Polish accent will sound very much like this, and sometimes words you don't know what to say, and you know, like it's very, very like that. And sometimes they're like, it's too much, like no one's going to understand what you're saying. But we want the authentic accent, but like bring it back so that it's like TV friendly. And you're like, what? What do you mean?
It's so weird. I know there's that weird balance, and it's a great lesson I think for people too, is to have an understanding of those levels, because like you just said, there was the note was, it's too much, we can't understand you. And I guess that has to do with maybe if the game was being released primarily in if it was, I mean, maybe if it was like a situation where it was a UK specific thing, people would understand it a lot easier, but they're like, from an American audience, no one's going to understand what you're saying here. So it's interesting.
Which I mean, of course I understand that. Like, you got to tailor it to the audience. It's just so funny when they say we want it to be authentic, and then it ends up actually not being authentic at all.
Yeah, I know. It's such a weird industry. It's I mean, accents and dialects are very, it's a huge part. And I'm curious for you because I was reading a bit, or maybe I was like listening to a podcast. I can't really remember because, you know what it was? I was doing research when I had Harry McIntyre on the episode, because in Xenoblade, there was a lot of, He's such a phenomenal human being,
Yeah.
and it was a
Yeah.
pleasure to have him. And he's also in 16.
Yeah,
Funny
I
enough,
know.
I'm
Yeah.
searching for him as I play. Um, but like, there was a lot of people with a traditional American accent that were in Xenoblade. And they were
Mm,
from the UK, so it was like
mm,
Americans living in the UK.
yeah.
I'm curious for you, because I think there are some American accents that exist within 16. Do you get those opportunities from a voiceover perspective, for the games that are being kind of primarily done in an Americanized setting, or are they often coming to you for the high fantasy UK style things, or are you seeing a combination of everything?
Yeah, no. I think I've only had one opportunity for an American character. It's very, very
Wow.
rare. Within voiceover, within acting, it's
Yeah,
different.
yeah,
I get British, and I have played American roles in TV series, but for voiceover, it's so specific because you only hear the voice, so it's almost like you're stripped down even more as an actor because it's just your voice. So it has to be authentic. And I mostly usually get fantasy roles where it's either, non-specific where I'm from,
yeah,
or the specific sort of we need a Viking, or we need an Eastern European, need a Russian or whatever. So I very much go for those roles. But I'm hoping, I'm really hoping that it might change, because I've spent, so many years in the UK now, and I can do a UK accent pretty well, I would say, by now. But
yeah.
yeah, I think it's because it says that I'm Norwegian and Polish on my CV. People automatically don't give me those opportunities because they expect me to have a strong European accent. Yeah, so I'm hoping that might change because I would love to play more American roles. I know so many video games are in the American accent, and there's so many video games that I would love to be in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Does
Yeah.
that does it have you had the thought process, or have you considered moving to Los Angeles because of that desire?
Mm.
Is that kind of like where your goals lie, or where do your goals lie, as like what would you like to be doing in the future?
Oh, that's such a huge question. And, I'm trying to figure it out myself a little bit. Each year I try to write specific goals, like where do I see myself in 5 years?
Yeah.
And Los Angeles has definitely been on that list. London is amazing. It is really amazing. I love London, but I would also love, warmer weather. Being able to go to the beach sometimes, So Los Angeles is definitely on my dream sort of wish list to be able to live. I think I'm very privileged in that way that most of my projects take me everywhere in the world. I get to work
Yeah.
everywhere. Like earlier this year, I was in Budapest for ages. Had an apartment there, stayed there for a while. And then before that, I've lived in Sweden for another series. And so I feel very fortunate that with the job I get to travel. But yeah, Los Angeles
Yeah.
is definitely on my bucket list. Like I would love to stay there for a longer period of time. And yeah, and immerse myself in the accent. I think it's such a beautiful, beautiful accent. It's so
The Los
warm and
Angeles accent or the American accent?
well, all American accents. I guess all American accents. I like the Los Angeles accent, actually. I like the kind of Valley
Really?
Girl. Yeah,
Interesting.
I do actually. I think it's so melodic. It's really nice. All
It's
American
so
accents I
interesting.
love.
whenever I sometimes like on YouTube I'll get these videos of like someone walking around the streets of like Ireland or Scotland or the UK, and they're like do an American accent, and then they always do like the Valley Girl type of this one, or they'll do like a very deep like I'm an American and I
Yeah, a
love
little
beer and I
southern.
do this and that. Yeah. So like that's like the always like the two caricatures of what Americans sound like. So it's funny
Yeah.
that you find it appealing to
Yeah.
you. It's
I have to say, I love the New York accent as well.
Oh, well, that's where my accent actually is from. I'm a New Yorker.
Oh, amazing. I love it. There's an incredible musical called Little Shop of Horrors.
Oh, sure.
I love that musical.
It's on
and their
Broadway right
accents.
now.
Is it? Oh my God.
Yeah,
would
I think
love
it
to
might.
catch
I don't
that.
know if it's closing soon, but it's definitely it's on right now. Yeah.
Oh, amazing. I just love that. And their accents, yeah, amazing. If I could ever learn that accent, like goal done. That is one of my goals. But I've
If you
not
ever
been
need help,
able
I'm
to.
more than willing to help. That's
Oh,
my
thank you.
backyard.
Thank you. Just out of curiosity, do you usually like go for American parts, or like you said you had some like British accent and British roles, but do you get any foreign roles ever? Like, how is it diving into a foreign sort of accent as an American?
I do get primarily it's oftentimes the ones that we're seeing it's like standard UK, RP, or they'll say some sort
Yeah.
of mid-Atlantic. That comes along a lot for the fantasy games and stuff.
Okay.
The World of Warcrafts or things of that nature. Every so often I'll get things that are like sometimes in anime too. I'll get like Australian, or I'll get
cool.
like and sometimes in proper animation, I'll get like, one of the hardest accents for me to do is French. I was just talking with someone about this the other day. Like, that's just a very specific European accent that's tough. But
Yeah.
sometimes I'll even like, depending upon what it is, sometimes I'll put an accent on a character, even if it doesn't ask for it. Like, if there's no need for it, just because I know that so many, like, if it's something being cast here in the States, and I'm like, everybody's going to do a read that's just like a version of themselves. But I'm like, if I see this person as like a little bit of something else, whether that is Eastern European or something, I'll do that. But it's not an overwhelming amount. But there are, like, within the States accents, all the time I'm getting various different forms of Southern accents. Midwestern, New York, Boston, more Californian. A lot of the war games ask for like different dialects from the States, but really I think as a suggestion to anybody acting wise, it's like, if you don't have a good proper RP, or like upper class, middle class London accent, or a Cockney accent of some sort, you're gonna miss out on, because those things do come around a lot with these fantasy games. So it's
That's
important.
true. Yeah, that's true. I think for anyone, even foreign actors as well, it's so good to just have that in the bag. I've found that, at least. I was actually, well, I think it's different now, because now there's more foreign roles that are casting, and people are exploring different accents and European accents more. But I had a teacher tell me, they were like, you might never work if you don't learn the RP and American accent.
Really?
Which I don't think is the case anymore at all. But it's definitely really helped. It's definitely really helped. Because it's something about
I think
diction.
it always, yeah,
Sorry.
I think it just always helps to have more tools in your tool bag, so you have more opportunities regardless of what it is. If it's something different, like you said, you speak Norwegian and Polish, like that's going to give you an outlet for maybe commercial or audiobook that might utilize that in some capacity.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and I think the fact that I've spent so much time with an accent teacher sort of bashing in the RP and American, it's really helped with my diction. So even when I'm putting on foreign accents, they are more understandable, I guess, for American ears, because I
Yeah.
know the American accent in a way. Like, I'm not going to sit here and say I'm amazing at American accent, but like, you know, that it does something to your diction. So it's definitely a good tool to have, like you say, in the bag.
Absolutely.
The clouds have come now. This is like the unpredictable weather in the UK. It's like 1 second it's sunny, and then the other second it's pouring down with rain. So, yeah.
You know, I haven't been, and I really want to go to the UK. There's like something to me about, I still have this fantasy, because even when I was in college, I always thought about doing like a study abroad at like RADA or something like that. I still have this fantasy of going and studying theater in the UK and just visiting and seeing if I could.
Why don't
hack
you
it.
just do like an MA at RADA?
You know, I'm sure you can maybe understand this. It's like at this point in my career, I'm like, but I'm working and I need to like ride the train while it's moving. But there's still like this real fantasy of doing those type of things. I mean, maybe at some point in my life, you know, who knows? I moved from New York to LA, and that was terrifying because I thought I'm going to lose all the people I work with in New York. But you just kind of do these things and it works. Yeah.
Yeah. So when did you move to LA then?
Right at the start of the pandemic.
Really? Oh gosh, so you moved at the pandemic. Oh no.
Yeah.
But
Tons
it's
of
worked
fun.
out. I mean, it's worked out really well for you. So I mean, kudos to you, because that's tough.
Well, it was strategic because I primarily in New York, and I want to talk to you about this in a second too. I was working primarily in theater and TV and film. I was doing tons of independent film, and I was really making, you know, I was up for a lot of series, and I was testing for things, and I'd done a bunch of guest stars and things. But the things that were consistently paying my bills were voiceovers. So I made a move strategically to say, I can still audition for things in LA for that type of stuff. Maybe people won't know me, but self-tapes are existing. But I really want to kind of go full throttle into the VO world, because that's the thing that keeps on giving. So it was strategic in that sense. But to the point I want to ask you is, I know you have done a ton of independent film. You got to work on a film. I mean, would you consider it? Do you guys consider it independent film? Because you've also produced a bunch of your own short films, and that was something that I was doing. Like, this is probably 10 questions in one here, but like, would you have considered the movie you did with Idris Elba to have been an independent film? And what was like, what was that life working on those things and making your own short films? Because that's so fascinating to me, because you have your own production company and you're a producer. So where did all that come from?
Yeah, I wouldn't consider. So the Idris Elba project was called 5 by 5, and this was actually a scheme sort of created by the BBC to help up and coming talent be able to showcase their work. So
that's amazing.
Which is so incredible. And Idris Elba has his own production company called Green Door Productions. And so he collaborated with the BBC, where he wanted to bring more like new voices, like screenwriters and directors, to be able to showcase their work. And so, you know, it was BBC. BBC is definitely mainstream, like it's a huge corporation. But the director I worked with, she had never directed a feature film, for instance. And after this, she got her first opportunity to direct a feature film. And same with the writers. They had never been able to, or they had never written for a TV series before. And so it was like their first time to get the foot in the door. And I thought, like, more schemes like this need to happen, because there are so much incredible talent that just don't manage to penetrate through the industry, because it's so dense already, filled with amazing talent. But we still need more voices. We need new stories and new perspectives of storytelling. So I felt honored actually to be part of that, because again, like, I wasn't very experienced back then. This was many years ago now. I think this was like 2015 or 2016, you know?
Oh, wow.
to be able to meet Idris Elba was like,
Yeah.
incredible.
But your acting in that film is exceptional too, at least the part that I saw on your reel.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, it was a very short, like they were all kind of short films made into a series, and then you can also watch the short films back to back as like an episode, I guess.
Yeah, I had done something similar like that. Yeah.
Yeah. So I wouldn't call that independent. However, all of the films that I produced are 100% independent. There's no bigger company behind it. There are some independent features that are produced by, amazing production companies. But I think, I'm actually a little bit unsure where the line goes between independent and then sort of mainstream.
Yeah.
Because, Everything, Everywhere, All at Once, that's an indie film.
Yeah, well, yeah, so that line is definitely getting blurred now for sure.
It's getting really blurred. So, I'm unsure. But yeah, the films that I produce, they're so independent. It's like, we go through crowdfunding campaigns, and we apply for funding through like British Film Institute and stuff like that. So yeah, those films are really independent. And, honestly, some of the best roles I've had have been in independent films.
Of course.
Yeah. So I treasure the indie industry, indie film industry.
Where did you start to, when or what was the idea behind you saying, I am going to produce my own films? Because as, someone who primarily trains as an actor, I can't imagine many acting schools go, okay, here's your producing course. At least, at the times we were studying. It's like, where did you kind of learn, and what was the reasoning behind saying, I want to start making my own short films and submitting them to festivals?
Honestly, I was done with waiting for the phone to ring, and just wanted to create with my friends and create opportunities for my friends and I to play more interesting characters. It's easy to be typecast and to play very two-dimensional characters in bigger TV series, Like my role in Peaky Blinders, even though that was an incredible opportunity and, an amazing experience, there wasn't very much meat to that character at all.
Sure.
And so like you constantly get these two-dimensional characters, and as you know, like actors, we love to dive in deep into someone's personality. Like we want to go on a journey with this character. So yeah, I was kind of done with just being cast in these two-dimensional Eastern European prostitutes. Like I always got these castings, I was like, okay, I'm done with this now. I can do more than that. And I created actually a film company with a fellow actor and also director. She's a film director now, and now she works as a casting director. So we created a film company and just decided to write our own stories and get like friends on board who are writers, and try to make them. So yeah, I got thrown into the producing bit because... So her name is Sofia Kargom, and she had been given a short film to direct. She had already directed a short film before, and the producer on this short film dropped out because of a family emergency. And so she called me up. She was like, Nina, we have a recce tomorrow. Can you come? Like, can you cover for the producer? Just, pretend that you know what you're doing. And at the time, I actually had a date scheduled with my boyfriend, who just came in the door now, with my boyfriend at the time. That was supposed to be our first date, and I had to cancel.
Oh my gosh.
and I went onto this recce, you know, completely blagging it, pretending that I knew what was going on. I had no clue. You know, that the evening before, I kind of just researched what do producers, like, what is a recce? What do producers do on a recce? And it kind of went well. And then
what is a recce? That term is beyond me at this. What is a recce?
So a recce is when you scout out locations for your film.
Oh, a location scout. Okay, so
basically location scouting. Yeah, maybe it's a British term. I don't know whether it's a British term.
I've never heard it, so maybe it is.
Yeah, we call it recce, and I've never heard of this. I hadn't had an acting job in a while, and I was sort of like, why not? Why not just throw myself into it and learn on the job, which is very risky because you are dealing with a lot of people and money that people have managed to gather, you know. So there's a lot of pressure, but I decided to do it anyway. And so I actually learned how to produce by just doing it. And there were so many errors. I did so many mistakes, almost, you know, sabotaged some of the shooting days. Like, genuinely, it was, the responsibility, like, we don't give enough creds to producers because they pull everything together. Like, what they do is a miracle. But it was an incredible learning curve, and I learned so much. And then after that, I was like, I just made a film. Why don't I try to make some of the films that I would like? You know, why don't I try to write something with people and make it? And so after that, I just continued getting opportunities to produce, and you learn new things every time. I wouldn't say that I'm a very seasoned producer at all. Like,
when I was in New York, that was primarily a similar situation. I kind of fell in. I was working with another partner at the time, and I was cast in his feature film. Long story short, I did his feature. We wound up, through just wanting to work together again, made another short film. That kind of got me into this world of wanting to keep doing this. He wound up going down a different road. And then I started my own production company, did a bunch of short films, did the festivals with a bunch, and then I actually fell into producing a narrative documentary about Madonna that we wound up selling to Hulu. So that was like my big thing as a producer.
Oh my God, congrats.
Yeah, it was insane. I couldn't, it's called Madonna and the Breakfast Club. I don't know if I've ever talked about it on here in that way, but that was that was like 2 years of my life living in New York, producing and then trying to get auditions, you know?
Oh my God. Wow. Well done for that. To produce a documentary like that and selling it to Hulu. That's huge.
And it had narrative elements to it as well. So we were doing reenactments that were full on theatrical scenes, cinematic scenes, and then also in tying in. So it was very interesting and cool to do that. But to your point, like, I totally understand kind of falling into that role as a necessity, and then you fell in love with writing from that, and now I saw something that maybe you're writing something now, or you have something that you're planning to put into production.
So you saw #Frozen, which was like a little kind of piece that I wrote myself and put together, and there is another short film called Hestia, which I co-wrote with a friend.
I was trying to find that, but I couldn't find it.
Maybe it's not online yet, because we're still kind of waiting to hear back from a few festivals.
Sure.
But I love writing. I love creating. I'm currently, you know, in the stages of writing a mockumentary with the same writer, Faiz Baksh. It's like a comedy mockumentary which has music in it. So it's like
all of your loves.
We're writing music as well. Faiz is a drill rapper. Like an incredible drill rapper, whilst my music is very sort of like, it's more like film music, sort of fantastical, kind of airy, you know. So we're trying to combine the two genres together, and it's actually sounding really cool.
Oh, awesome.
So that's in the process. I am producing another short film, which a friend of mine called Lizzie Nunnery, she's an incredible award-winning writer, actually. I met her on a different project. She's writing a script, or she has written a script in which I'm starring as the leading role, but I'm also producing this. So this is what we're filming later in November, alongside my really dear friend, Rebecca King. She's directing. So that's kind of gone ahead. We've got the green light. We're filming that in November. And yeah, there's just something about creating your own projects, as I'm sure you know.
Yeah. They
end up being your babies. Like you put so much of your love and soul into it. And you know, I've got my films like up on the wall behind me.
Oh yeah.
Like those are the posters. You know, I just have so much pride and love for these films.
Very
and
rewarding.
I know it's so rewarding, and they're not perfect. I know there are so many faults in every single film that I've produced. But yeah,
I see every fault and everything I would have changed every time I watch one of my own things. Yeah.
Yeah, but still, you just treasure them with your whole being. So it is definitely a source of creativity and work that brings some of like the most joy to me in my career.
Yeah.
And I intend to continue. Yeah,
Wow.
I really want to kind of dive into producing a feature film.
Heck yeah.
Hopefully next year. So yeah, that's the goal.
Best of luck. Break legs on that. It's so I've gone down that road, and I know it's very rewarding. A lot of hard work, but I definitely wish you the best of luck. It'll be amazing.
I would love to see your films. I would love to see them.
Yeah, no, I can.
Can you send me links?
Yeah, I can send you links to both of them.
And I'll send you links to mine.
Heck yeah, please. I would love to see them.
Yeah.
I spent a good deal of my morning looking for them, so it'll have work will have paid off. I wanted to ask you, if you don't mind, if you have a couple more minutes real quick, please. I would love to just talk quickly, because a lot of people who listen to this podcast know of me and this podcast through the love of these video games and stuff, and I would love to just quickly talk about Benedikta and your process for things, and a little bit deeper in terms of what happens in the story, again, without spoilers here. There are moments in this game where you truly, and like you said, you want to make your own things so you can have these really kind of fulfilling performances, and I feel like I have to imagine that was a very fulfilling role, because you really go through so many emotions, and without, again, saying spoilers here, there is a fight scene where we get to see you really express yourself. I'll say it that way.
Yeah.
It's very raw, and it's very real, and it's a full character arc in this one scene, and I just wanted to know about maybe your either process with that, or kind of what did you have to do to prepare for those type of scenes for Benedikta?
So it's funny, because a lot of people ask me that, like, how do you get into the emotional state of these like very impactful, high stake scenes? And my answer is maybe a bit boring, but I've come to the point now, I feel like in my career, where I can turn it off and on.
Yeah.
Like, and I have to give thanks to my training again, and also just learning on the job as an actor, being given various characters in TV and film. You learn so much on the job. And before, it took me a while to get into certain emotions. Like, I needed to take, a day off. Like, if I knew that I was shooting a very hard scene the next day, the day before, I was a nightmare. So, but now I think I've come to the point where I don't necessarily need that sort of emotional prep anymore.
Yeah.
I can kind of turn it on when I get in, which was really handy for Benedikta, because I was only sent the scenes a few days before.
Yeah.
You know, as you know yourself, they're so secretive about scripts. So they only hand it out to you sometimes like the day before the recording.
Yeah.
So my prep was actually to just stay as open and receiving and giving as possible, to kind of go into the voice booth knowing that I need to be prepared for anything. So yeah, just to be like to have my emotional register available there and then. So yeah, my preparation was very quick like that, because yeah, I'd get sent the scenes the day before and I kind of had an idea, okay, we might have to go into high stakes here. So yeah, and then what was amazing was that we had so much time to explore all of the scenes. And this is the first time in a video game that I've experienced having so much time and for them to be so generous with giving me the opportunity to explore. So, you know, we try the scenes many different ways. And I also had the power to say, guys, I didn't like that. Can I try again? Or can I try it a different way? And as you know, many times it's just give us the line in 2 different ways. And then you kind of jump to the next line.
Yeah.
So you don't have time to prep. But most of the prep that I did, actually all of the prep that I did, was in the booth already with the performance directors and Koji on the line. So it was an amazing experience, a very cathartic experience many times.
Was it, sorry to interrupt,
yeah.
was it how much of it was like mocap, PCAP, and how much was it just being in the booth?
Oh, we did. Well, you know, I'm trying to like remember back now. We started mostly without I think we did most of the face capture like later on. But all of the scenes were face captured. You know, all of us did face capture. So yeah, all of the scenes, I guess, we did with face capture. Yeah. And then I guess with the impact stuff, you know, we did a few sessions that are only impacts, only sort of shouts and kind of fighting things.
The reactions.
What do you call it?
Yeah. The
reactions,
efforts and reactions. Yeah.
Efforts. So, you know, we do like 2 hours straight with just efforts. That doesn't really need the face capture for it.
Sure.
Yeah.
Did you get to record with your partners at any point in time? Was there any cast records, or because it was COVID, right?
I was so disappointed because I didn't get to record with anyone. Yeah. I know Ben recorded with Ralph and Susanna, so they did some like ensemble recordings. But I was always left to myself. I was always left alone. And very often, actually, I think many times I was the first one to record my scene. So I didn't even have, you know, Ralph's voice or sometimes Ben's voice to react to.
Interesting.
So I had Morgan and Hannah and Ollie sort of reading in the lines for me. The directors would read in, you know, Clive's voice or like Hugo's voice. And yeah, it was really funny, especially the scenes with Hugo, without spoiling anything. But you can imagine that was just, it was really hard to keep a straight face. Yeah, so most of my time with Benedikta was on my own in the booth. But in a way, I kind of loved that.
Yeah, and you also kind of set the pace for everybody else, I feel like. So that's kind of a big responsibility that you would not have known about, but you really are, assuming they put your voice in for what they were doing, you're informing a lot of the choices that they would have made. And you, as the first on site, you have to kind of like do a little bit of your own imaginative crafting of what is, because and listen, bless everybody who is a reader and they do these things, and the voice directors, and they do their best jobs, but it is a different experience than having somebody giving you the nuance of a seasoned actor, and so it that says a lot more to me about your performance and how good it is. And I think particularly about a scene, and again without spoiling here, there's a scene between you and Sid. It's a little bit later on, but there's it's where you kind of hear about Benedikta's motives and story, and it's a little bit of, like, I think one of the a line that's said, and this is without spoiling, it's like you say, I'm going to use my talents to my advantage. You know, I believe that's the way it's said, and that whole back and forth speech in that area, it's. I mean, I would have sworn that was recorded back to back with you two. You know what I mean? The way that plays off each other.
It wasn't. No. Yeah, it actually wasn't. That scene is out, like that cut scene is out on YouTube. It was one of the scenes that they used for the previews, I think, back in February.
Oh, great. We can talk about it then. Great.
Yeah, so we can actually talk about that one. But yeah, I think I just wanted to give Benedikta's full truth, and again, I have to give so much creds to the team, because for half an hour in the recording session, they would just tell me what was going on.
Yeah.
They'd be like, okay, this is what's happening in the game. So they informed me a lot on what was happening to Benedikta. I did get a character brief with her background and history, which I very much kept in mind when sort of forming her character. But yeah, in the booth, I was very much left kind of to myself. So you kind of just have to imagine someone that you might know, or, I can't say that I've been in her situations whatsoever, but you can still kind of correlate her experience to something that you might have experienced and kind of use those emotions. So to me, the most important thing was just to speak her truth as authentically as I could in the sessions. And I think maybe that's also why it cuts really well together, because everyone speaks their character's truth so well. Yeah. And the script has been written really well for it to flow in the end after they've, pieced it together. So yeah, I have a lot of respect for the developers who basically edit this together at the end. I have to thank them, for making my performance shine that way.
That scene is one of my favorite scenes, and it's because it's and what I think it will exist. Again, I haven't beaten the whole game yet, but I think it's kind of what exists throughout the story, is you see these people fighting for their position in this really messed up world, and to see your character, and I guess if that scene is out, this is not a spoiler, in this way that you are trying to position yourself in the most advantageous, the most advantageous, whatever the word, whatever the word is, the most whatever the way is,
she has to use. What she's saying, she has to use her talents to her advantage to be able to stay at the top like she does. Yeah. She's leading a huge kind of, what do you call it? She's leading a group of intelligencers, like soldiers. Yeah. She's at the top, She needs to assert her power in some way, and women and men have different talents. We have different ways of using our power. Yeah. And sexuality is definitely a way that women can use their sexuality to their advantage. And she is unafraid to do that. Yeah. She knows that it's gonna give her a certain level of power. Yeah. Which I really love, because she's not just this sexy dominatrix. You know, she kind of might look that way, but there's so much more to her. There's so much more to her story and to her objectives. So yeah, she's very powerful in many ways. And yeah, she's unafraid of her sexuality as well, which I personally think is amazing.
It's very powerful, and I think that what Sid says in that scene is like, you know, I used to think, or you always said you wanted to be free, and it's like the choices that Benedikta has made and makes is because this became the only route of doing this as a dominant. You know, these characters in the story, largely, if you don't know this by now, there's people who have magic and they're experiencing essentially slavery, and Benedikta is choosing, like, I just want this, and it's not working the way I want, so how can I get this? And that's why there's a very clear goal of your character, and it's not just like, oh, I'm only going to do this one thing. Throughout the story, we see many different ways. It's why it was always surprising every time your character, as far as, you know, I've gotten, every time you pop up on screen, I'm like, what? I'm like, wait, what? I'm like, hang on, what is... And that's kind of really enjoyable from a storytelling perspective, and I'm sure as the actor to constantly be thrusted into these different positions where you're positioning yourself.
Yeah. I always talk about how I love how unpredictable she is. There's never a dull moment with her. And yeah, I am genuinely, I really hope that players get to see like the deeper side of her. I wish that there was more. I wish that that we got to explore more.
Yeah.
But I think
DLC? Hey, maybe a DLC?
DLC, yeah, like, hello.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, because she is very complex and very, she has a very interesting background.
Yeah.
Which shapes her. Yeah.
It's a really great game. I highly recommend people play it. There's a demo, which, gosh, if you haven't gotten to that at this point, it's in the demo will wreck you. I left that demo with my jaw dropped. Lastly, here quickly, Nina, before I let you go, you've been so generous with your time. In Final Fantasy XVI specifically, was there a moment of maybe insecurity, doubt, or reward that you had while recording?
Probably all of them, you know. I always have some insecurities and some doubts, and definitely a lot of reward. I think the reward, I guess, in itself is how amazingly well the game has done. And the reviews are incredible. Ben and Rolf and Susanna and Dave. I mean, David and I, we go way back now because we're both fellow Norwegians. But it's just been such a rewarding process to meet everyone and to be able to do this press with everyone. I've learned so much from them, and it continues. You know, like we're now creating another level of camaraderie. Can I say that? Camaraderie, friendship. You know, and there's so many things happening still, which we're all part of, which is so amazing. I'm so grateful. With the doubt and insecurity, you know, sometimes I guess you go out of a session and you're like, oh, did I give it justice? Did I do it justice? You know? Yeah, exactly. I think there's something you can't escape that as an actor. I think we always strive for better things. You know, we're perfectionists and we never manage to reach the perfection, unfortunately. So yeah, there's been some moments of doubt where I've been like, oh, maybe I could have done this differently. Insecurity. It was quite daunting before the game release. I was definitely a little bit nervous. You know, didn't quite know how it would be received, how Benedikta would be received. So I experienced some insecurities leading up to the launch, but you know, all in all, it's been an incredibly rewarding process. And one of the highlights in my career as a voice actor in video games. like 100%. So yeah, I'm extremely grateful for being part of it.
I'm extremely grateful to you and the team for casting this game so amazingly and making the experience like I said earlier, when I'm not playing the game, I'm thinking about like wanting to play the game, which to me is like
amazing.
a wonderful indication of like how good it is. Like I just really want to because I'm streaming the game while I play it, so I'm very specific. I'm not like I can't just play it like when I'm just on my own. Although, like, I'm trying to figure out a way of getting, like, some sort of, like, that PlayStation portable thing that they're just, I'm like, please come out with that so I can play it on the go.
Yeah.
But it really is a great game. The performances are astounding. Your performance is exceptional, and it's been one of the highlights of getting to play the game as much as I have right now. I truly have been inspired, and it's been gratifying as not only a consumer of somebody who loves these games and is extremely critical of them, but also as a fellow actor to admire your performance and everybody else's. It's truly breathtaking. So kudos and thank you and congratulations on everything.
Thank you so much. You know, that means so much coming from you. You know, you're even more seasoned than I am in like voiceover, and it genuinely means so much hearing that from you. So thank you so much. And thank you so much for having me on your podcast and for creating this content. And I'm so excited to see your films. And you know, I'm not a gamer, so I most likely will not have played the games that you've been in. But I'm starting.
I haven't played them all either.
But I'm starting with 16. I have promised a lot of people that I'm going to play it myself. Maybe stream it. I don't know. Maybe. We'll see.
You should. That would be so fun. I would love that.
I know. It's just such a time commitment, you know? Like
it is. It's not easy.
Yeah. I travel all the time everywhere. So I just need to find, you know, the time to sit down and do it. But maybe, you know, this will lead to me playing more video games. And in that case, if it does, I'm so excited to hear your performances in all of your games.
That's very, very kind. And I don't say it because I have to. I say it because I want to. And I mean that. That's the reason why I wanted to have you on the show. I was just, having played it, I was like, I gotta get Nina to come on here and talk about this. Aww. And it's been a real gift. So thank you for your time. Congratulations on everything. I can't wait to see more of what's to come. Is there any social media wise? I believe it's your name, and you pronounce it Nina Yndis, right?
Yeah,
that's how you pronounce
perfect.
It
Yeah, Nina Yndis. Yeah,
it's at Nina Yndis.
Yeah.
Okay.
All of my social
that's where
media
handles.
handles.
Find anything.
Yeah. All of my social media handles are the
so
same.
Everybody, please. Great. So everybody please go and give Nina a follow. And if you haven't played 16, you need to. Like I said, get that demo downloaded because it will hook you. It will destroy you in all of the great ways. Thank you so much for coming on. It really was a pleasure. Seriously.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for having me.
And just like that, that is our episode with the fabulous Nina Indus. I truly mean it when I said that I was playing this game, and the second I saw her performance, I knew I had to have her on. It's so crazy how this type of game can introduce you to a whole new way of experiencing story. I really feel like it's following in the footsteps of great games like The Witcher and combat styles of things like Devil May Cry. But really a story that I think is universal and also appreciative by fans of fantasy and RPGs. It's just such a good story, and it really pulls on your heartstrings, and it makes you want to root for people, and it's got cute dogs, and her character Benedikta is absolutely a standout highlight. I can't recommend it enough. And she is just an amazing, wonderful person who I can't wait to see and hear more of. I can't wait to watch the rest of her films, and I'm just going to be rooting for her on the sidelines. It's as actors and creators, it's always inspiring to see people try out new things and to make their own content and find I know she started off doing video games, which is kind of funny, but this like newfound popularity and success through video games, and I hope that it just kind of continues from there. Would love to see more. Thank you all for watching and listening. More episodes every week when we can, and we will. And make sure you're following, liking, and subscribing. Leaving us comments in the videos, what you liked, what you didn't like, when and where I should get haircuts, because that's what I'm going to do next. I'm going to go get a haircut. So I guess that comment doesn't make any sense. But you can let me know what you think about it in the next episode, I suppose, because the hair will be different. Thank you, guys. Really appreciate you. Much love, much love, much love. And we'll see you on the next one. Bye-bye.